Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another installment of Transition Talks with Athlete Soul, where we discuss the stories of transition with former elite athletes and what they have learned throughout the process. I'm your host, Steve Davis Jr., former football player, athlete transition coach, and the founder of Strive Higher Athlete Sports. In this episode, I get the pleasure of speaking with Lolo Silver, a former USA swimmer, water polo champion, and player of the year. Now, Lolo had dedicated a lot of her life to competing in the water, but ultimately chose to pivot as she got more exposure in what life can be like outside of sports. I'm sure she has a lot of great insights to share, so let's jump right into the conversation. All right, welcome in, Lolo. How you doing?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm hanging in there. I like your smile. Looks like you're ready to
I
have a great conversation.
am. I'm pumped.
Great. So we know that you love water. So let's jump into maybe some history there. Like what got you into swimming and water polo and just, the love of water. How did that start for you and what was your sporting career like?
Yeah. Um, for me, it really started like quite literally in the womb. My mom was a 1976 Olympic swimmer. So I didn't have a choice. It was when I was growing up, it's like you're going to do swim team and something else. So I was always swimming from when I was younger. I actually went to an elementary school that had a pool and a swim club tied to it. So after school, when I did after school program, they would just bring you to the pool. And having working parents, that was great. Also, with my mom's history, she was very, very happy with that. And then got into water polo around 9 or 10. Growing up in Southern California, it's a sport that really everyone plays. Um, but my swim club just started a little water polo program kind of on the side and fell in love with it. So it was awesome. Games were shorter. It was definitely more of a team game than individual swimming. And then from there, my swim team merged with the water polo club where those athletes would come and do swim team at my swim club. And if we wanted to play water polo, we would play for that club. And it really started from there. And when I say I was hooked immediately, like I was hooked immediately. There was no going back to swimming. I know you have to swim in order to play water polo, but I was swimming to play water polo. Um, and did both throughout high school and then ended up, in college. It's pretty hard to do both. So went and and I was getting recruited by much better water polo schools and swim schools. So ended up playing water polo at Stanford and had the opportunity to represent Team USA. So played on the USA team from 2009 to about 2014 and played professionally within those years as well during our off training years. So really played all over at every level, but it was like for me at least immediate, like fell in love with the sport.
Wow. Yeah, and when I think of water polo, when I was a kid and we played Marco Polo or just any type of playing with balls with in the
Yeah.
water, we weren't swimming specifically. I read something that said that you all train with weighted vests
Yeah.
while paddling your feet for about 3 hours of practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds
Sounds
about right.
crazy, but how did you get this ability to build that strength and endurance? And I'm sure like there's a lot that goes into it, but tell us more about like what it takes to be on the Olympic team in that type of sport.
Yeah. You're training 6 days a week, 6 to 8 hours a day. Um, Maybe one of those days it's not a double day. It's like instead of 6 hours, you have one 4 hour practice. It's a lot of conditioning. So kind of depends where we are in terms of like a competition schedule, but ranges anywhere from 4 days of weights to 3 to 2 days of weights. And obviously, like we are working with strength trainers that want to optimize our strength and understand what our competition schedule is to make sure that we're at peak performance during that competition schedule. Um, and lots of swimming. Again, it does depend on when our competition schedule is, but you know, I always say we train full time for the last 2 years of an Olympic quad. So the 2 years leading up to the Olympics. And I think the first 8, 10 weeks, like we hardly actually play water polo. It's a lot of swimming, a lot of lifting, and then a lot of just drills.
Mm.
So it's not as much scrimmaging. You're really getting that foundation to be able to be fast and to be strong. And then it gets tactical as you get closer. But for me now, like treading water is like walking. You
Wow.
could just sit there, it's pretty relaxing. I always tell any of my old teammates, now I have two little kids as they get pregnant. I'm like, you got to go just tread water for a little bit. It's like the most calming, feels good on your body type of workout. And not very many people can do it, but it is second nature at this point.
Wow. Yeah. You're not like a duck that's paddling so fast underneath the water anymore. You can kind of relax a little bit now.
Yeah. You are a little bit, but you're used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you were pretty good. Player of the year on the Olympic team. What were some of like the highlights of your career that you're proud of?
Man, it's funny 10 years out, but I am very proud of my career. I think so. I was the last one cut for the London quad, which I wouldn't say, if you asked me probably, man, even like up till 3 years ago, I wouldn't say that was like a highlight, but I have so much more respect for the game and respect for what it takes to be good at the game that I'm like, I'm very proud of how far I got. And then knowing that the team went to win the Olympics, they got a gold medal. It was the first gold medal for the US team that has now kicked off a dynasty. Like there's something very special about just being a part of that team. And I'm still very close to those women today. I'm very happy they're in my life. And I think even that group, they're so supportive of me that I'm just very lucky to be a part of something like that. And yeah, like same thing in college. Like Stanford was my dream school. And I can say very confidently that without water polo, I probably would not have had the opportunity to attend that tier of college. So I am very proud of myself for, you know, just falling in love with a sport and devoting myself to it in a way that like all of these personal accolades and all of these teams and groups of people that I've been able to meet were possible because it really is something I never thought I could do.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And obviously it carried you forward in playing professionally and playing with, the Team USA. But you decided to make a pivot at a critical point in
Yeah.
2012 as the team's getting ready. There was a lot going on in your life at that point. Can you walk us through like what led to that decision of leaving the sport and what was that transition like?
Yeah, it's interesting. So after 2012, I went and played professionally in the Netherlands. In that first year, I got right back into water polo. That's kind of what I was used to doing after, season ended, good or bad. I just threw myself right back into it. And to me, everything I knew of how to distract yourself or get over something was to get right back into the pool.
Mm,
And after getting cut from London, that going right back in worked for a little bit. And then when you play abroad, your life really slows down. You have a lot of time to yourself, a lot of time to think. Uh, it's a little harder to connect with people, like especially if there's a language barrier. So at that point, I was thinking, what else do I want? Or like if I were to do this again, what would I need to feel supported? You know, where like water polo doesn't have to be everything in my life. And I realized like when I was in college, I always had like a certain air and a certain confidence about myself that I think I was missing on the national team. And in college, I look back and I had school, I had my sorority, I had other activities outside of the sport that I think ultimately made me a better person and a better athlete.
mm,
And so I looked at myself and I said, how am I going to find that on the national team when I'm training similar to a full-time job? Like knowing I need other things. So 2013 came back, trained on the national team, went to world championships, and just going full time again. I think that solidified of my thought of like, okay, for me to do this, I need something else. So that second year, I went back and played professionally. I was lucky enough to get into a master's program. So I found the Johan Cruyff Institute is a school in the Netherlands founded by Johan Cruyff, who's like a legendary soccer player in the Netherlands. And what this program is designed to do is to help athletes with their transition. It's technically a master's in sports management, but it teaches you the background of sports when it comes to like a professional team, or and the business aspect to it. And through that internship, through that master's program, I was lucky enough to find an internship at Nike. So at this point now, I had school. I was working at I would say like a very international company. So I started to meet like more international friends. Um, had water polo. So I started to feel like that confidence again and started to just feel like how, I guess, complete I was feeling and how happy I was, even with water polo. And so at at that point, I had my internship go until like the end of June, same with my master's. And I got an email from our coach asking me to be back at the beginning of June. And I had gained so much confidence. I knew how important that balance was for me, where I asked the coach, like, hey, I have my master's that I need to graduate at and an internship that I'd like to complete. I can be there July 1st. You don't need to take me to the tournaments. I'm okay just training, but it's really important for me to finish these out. I think we skipped this part, but you make a lot of sacrifices for your sport. So I had missed both my high school and college graduations for different US Team USA commitments. So to me, this meant a lot after not making the Olympic team. I wanted to finish these out. And at that point, the coach came back and said, I really want you to focus on this and you need to make a choice. And so my choice was to stay and stay balanced. And I always figured, to me, I think in my brain at that point, it felt more tangible and easy to say, I'm going to take this summer off and finish these out, and then I'll be back in fall training. Uh, but then I started, I took water polo out of the equation, and I realized even with both and just trying to figure it out, I was happy, and I started to get more excited about what I could potentially do at home or when I came back to the US. And so I gave myself the summer to figure out, apply to jobs, see where I really was. And then I ended up getting an opportunity to move to San Francisco. And I think at that point, I realized how much more excited I was for that than to continue to play water polo. And I think for me, that's all it really took.
Yeah. Yeah. All the credit to you in respect to being able to experience that, but also expose yourself to the other side.
Yeah.
Um, getting that opportunity within the master's program probably opened up something different to like, oh, okay, now I get a job opportunity out of this. And like you said, for the first time, you get to invest in another side of you that you probably didn't have a lot of time to do because water polo just dominated your life. I was
Yeah.
having conversations with some athletes before about elite performers, and seems like if you're not like all in, then it's kind of hard for you to stay at that level. But being all in is not always all good because, as you said, like you started to feel more joy and happiness with being able to explore some other aspects of yourself.
Yeah.
So, given that, like, how does that show up for you now in your work and your world? Like, what have you taken from that experience to help you, live the same joy, happiness that you have in your life?
Yeah. I mean, for me, balance is huge. And uh, e- I I'm on at work. I can be on at work, but I know for me to be on at work, I have to turn it off.
Mm,
And turning it off doesn't mean just going to sleep. Turning it off means like you got to be a well-balanced human. In my certain life stage, a lot of it is forced, having a 5 and a 3-year-old. But, it's like what I think now I have a very healthy relationship with water polo as masters, as it's very hard to watch myself get worse at something. But I realized I, even after my competitive career ended, I do love the sport. And so it took some time, didn't touch a water polo ball, didn't jump in a pool, said I was never going to do it. And then slowly I started to, pick up masters here and there. Then I got a little bit more consistent. And through that, I've realized that, where I am today, water polo is something I do love to do as an adult, even. And it doesn't have to be my top tier thing that I'm doing. But it does bring a lot of balance to my life. And it is something that I can do for myself. That means a lot to me. And I think just having that, it's funny, it's kind of like flipped roles, but having that and knowing that I do love it and I know that, and having something like that in my life is super important and makes me a more well-rounded person.
Yeah. No, that's a good point because when you put a lot of your life into it and you're playing at an elite level and then all of a sudden it's gone, there's a piece of
Yeah.
you that's missing and there's a piece of you that's like, I can't stand to be around it or watch it because I couldn't watch football for like a few years.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, it is a piece of you that you've enjoyed. So
Yeah.
growing and maturing to a point where like, okay, now I feel comfortable at least getting back acclimated into it, but it doesn't have to be at the same level. I can
Yeah.
still enjoy it is, really like progress in regards to like just our mindset and how we are able to process, a
Yeah.
lot of those things.
And I think for me, a lot of it is, now that I'm over like a decade out, I do need that competitive outlet
Mm,
that work on your computer at your desk doesn't always provide you.
hmm
And so sports is a great avenue for that. And, I'm so competitive that even just like cheering on, the Dodgers doesn't do it for me. I got to do it myself. Um, so it is really nice to just know that at some point it's fun, kind of fun to remind yourself like
Yeah,
being good at something is fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Like as you think about that, and maybe like any other experiences that have showed up in your life, like I guess what other passions or things that you've explored that you realize that you really enjoy now, and maybe flipping the perspective from winning in the arena of water polo to now, like what does success and thriving mean to you now?
Yeah. You know, I it's a really good question. I think about the teams that I am on and the support that I have. And I think a lot of it comes from sports. Um, a couple things. Like one, I always want to create a safe space where people are striving to be their best, but we're not looking for perfection. We're okay with mistakes because mistakes mean you're going as hard as you can. Um, and I think I've been on team, I'm hyper aware of that, like even in the working world where, I find it myself, like I'm always striving for perfection. And sometimes I have to take a step back and think like, you're never going to be perfect. And, when you were playing at whatever level, like you didn't need to have the perfect game. Like you're going to make mistakes and like how to rebound off of that. And if I'm feeling like I am in a world where I can't make a mistake, at that point, I'm thinking why versus just trying to be perfect. And so at that point, it's how do I adjust? How do I make a safer place for everyone on the team? And two, I think I've learned to trust my intuition just through sports. a lot more than someone who potentially didn't have this passion. I think it's I think in every sport it's like you got to make a decision and figure it out, then not make a decision is like the worst thing you can do. So, I'm more okay with doing something. I know doing something is better than nothing. So we got to make a decision, and I know that I can figure it out after, but we can't sit in this I don't know phase. Um, and I think I am very action oriented because of that. So I do think that piece translates really well to the working world.
Yeah. Yeah, we learned that. You got to do something. Got to move
Yeah,
forward.
you
Got to keep
can't.
progressing.
Yeah, you can't sit in between two people. You got to go to one.
Right.
Yeah,
No, I love that. And knowing that you mentioned, your daughters and being a mother, now that you are, you know, sowing the seed for the next generation. In the perspective of what you've learned in your own experience in sport, and I'm not sure if your children are in sport yet, but thinking about their lives, what are some things that you absorbed that you would like to like share with them as they progress and just thinking about the future of how they get involved with a
yeah.
sport?
Right now, I'm really focused on them having fun. And it did take a minute for me to be like, my daughter is 5 playing AYSO soccer. We don't need to like push her into this. I just want to make sure that they're developing skills. One to have coordination, and then I really want to just make sure, like I said, they're having fun, they're making friends. Um, because I think part of, and I reflect back on my career, a big part of me not sticking with swimming was the pressure I felt to be a swimmer. And I think my mom, she will probably listen to this and she will agree. Like our biggest fight growing up is when I told her I'm gonna go play water polo. And that was my top priority. And so I think, but now I get it a little bit more. Like as a parent, you do have goals for your own kids, and it's being flexible to that. And I think one of the values and things that stuck with me with water polo was playing a sport that my parents didn't know anything about was really beneficial in a lot of ways because it took away that pressure off of me, and it put me in a place where I was educating them on the sport. Um and I think that's huge and I think that's unique. And I don't know if parents think that way today.
Hmm.
Because I'm even sitting at, again, my daughter's soccer games and I hear parents yelling at their kids to get their head in the game and focus and run this way. And, you know, they're not ready for that. And they're just trying to figure out which way is which, where the goal is. And I think even like those very basic fundamentals of a game are what's going to translate
Mhm.
to other sports because most of the time what you do at 5 is not what you're going to do at 20 if you're still an athlete. And so how do you let them understand like, hey, you're defending a goal. Hey, this person's on your team. Like your your goal is to get the ball. Like there are just very, very basics that can lay the foundation for doing well in other sports that are really important to learn now.
Yeah. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's like the fun element,
Yeah.
making sure that
Yeah.
they're enjoying the process. And what it sounds like from what you're saying too, uh, the swimming pool is off limits for your kids.
Now, my daughter's on swim team. I mean, my mom is a swim coach, so she's kind of doing it again, but
Okay.
a different level for sure. My daughter's on swim team, and she is she,
Yeah.
she's very tall and lengthy and has like a swimmer's body. So my mom is very excited. Definitely has like the Dutch. My husband is from the Netherlands, so has that Dutch length. Um, so we will see. And she
Yeah.
does really, really enjoy it now, but it still is like make sure she has fun, make sure she does some meet when she's ready.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm trying to balance that pressure as well. Like how much do I push her into doing a swim meet versus listening to her?
Right. It's
Yeah.
always there for athletes that have children, and it's like, okay, how do I balance my bias versus like pushing them, but also making sure they're enjoying themselves because
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure to live up to, world champion, Olympic champions, and it's like, okay, this is a different level I have to compete against, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And I tell myself she's like almost double because not just I didn't just play at that level, but her grandma played at that level. And
Oh
then even
yeah.
if I go above that, my grandpa played football at Cornell. So it's just like,
Hmm. It's in the genes.
yeah. And so I'm like, okay, it's gonna be okay if she doesn't play a college sport. But again, it's just additional pressure, and it goes to their personality too, which you got to figure out. Like
Yeah.
my son is a lightning bolt. I think most people's second kids are.
Yeah.
And he is 3 years old already asking like to go play water polo.
Yeah.
So it's pretty funny.
Awesome. Well, just in that same vein, like now, there's a lot happening for athletes in the younger age getting ready for bigger opportunities, whether it be high school to college and college to what opportunities could be presented. But I think a lot of what we try to focus on here at Athlete Soul is just helping them understand a little bit more about who they are and how they can build themselves outside of the sport. And given your full experience and even just the perspective of thinking about your children, um, you know, if you were to talk to some of the athletes that are competing currently, like what would you say to them to help them think about themselves as more and tapping into that while also still competing? Like what would you say to them?
I would say to have fun. Like at that level it's not going to last forever, but find joy in the hard work. Um and know that you're like as much as I'm happy I'm not playing, I do miss being around the team and the girls all the time. And to get to know who you are, I think you have to ask yourself, like, what is it about this sport that hooked me so quickly or like helped motivate me during these hard times? Because that's really what made each athlete like successful as an individual. And that really does show a lot about you. And we don't always stop and think about how we reacted in that moment. We think about how we're going to be do better next time, or you think about your performance so much. But thinking about, aside from the sport, just like the little things about you that made you really like it. Like, is it the team? Is it the game? Like, do you like scoring? Do you like supporting the team? Like, just different aspects of it, because there are different aspects that appeal to different people, um, that you could bring in to the working world, or you can bring into that transition. And thinking about those, yeah, like more subjective characteristics, I think are the ones that are going to help you translate what you've done in sport to your next role.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you saying is like paying attention to the life skills that you're getting from this and how,
Yeah,
how you're showing up and what are you using in order to do well in the space and how it translates to
yeah,
how you do well in other spaces,
yeah,
which is important.
yeah.
So, yeah. Well, Lolo, I really appreciate your time today, being a part of this transition talks and learn a little bit more about your journey and love to see that you're smiling on the other side of this transition and hopefully giving people a sense of light and encouragement, just kind of
Yeah,
hearing your story. So thank you once again for your time.
of course. This was fun. No,
Yeah,
it's great. It's been a fun journey for sure.
cool, cool. All right. Well, thank you all for paying attention to this transition talks. We'll talk to you for the next one and keep listening for these inspiring stories. So thank you.